Okay, so hello and welcome to another episode of Grief Unedited. This is a space where we try and have real, honest, and raw conversations about grief and loss. I'm your host, Karen Lafferty, and I'm an accredited counsellor specialising in grief. I've been working with people for over a decade now to help them navigate their journey through loss. Now, if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, and both of those are at Continuum Counselling, or my website is www.continuumcounselling.com. Now, I always want to acknowledge that this podcast is purely for educational purposes, and any views that I express within it are my own, so they're not representative of any of the third parties that I work either on behalf of or alongside. And lastly, in each episode so far, I've always given a bit of a content warning, and this is just to acknowledge that our conversations are unedited. They sometimes can be quite raw, so just use your own discretion when you are listening along. So if you find any of the content today difficult, if you find it particularly emotive, that's absolutely okay. You're welcome to step away from the episode and come back and listen when it feels right for you. So yeah, listen to your own wisdom, and if it doesn't feel helpful for you, that's absolutely okay. Now, today's episode is a little bit different to what we have had on our podcast before. So, up until now, all of our episodes have really been about human experiences of death, grief, loss. And I'm really excited today because my guest today is Lisa McCabe, who is the dog witch. And she's going to be talking to us a wee bit about how grief can impact our pets. So, just to get the ball rolling for us, Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a wee bit about what you do. Tell us what the dog witch is.
Yeah. Yeah, no bother. Hi, Karen. Thanks so much for having me. So, as you said, I am the dog witch. And what that means is that I am an holistic canine wellbeing consultant. And really, what that kind of comprises of is that I use whatever you can find in nature to help dogs heal and repair their bodies. And I'm not some mad happy type that will tell you not to go to the vet. Like if you've got a sick dog, your first port of call is your vet. But if I can help you then manage pre-existing conditions like arthritis, cancer, all that sort of stuff, but with things that we find in nature, whether that's food, herbs, essential oils, and of course holistic practices, sound healing therapy, massage, big ones, dog massage. Massage can have such a profound effect on dogs, and owners just don't realise this. So it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that I've done with my own dogs. I've been doing it for about 16 years and I absolutely love it. So yeah, it's amazing.
Amazing, amazing. And I love that idea of like actually some of those practices that we rely on as humans to keep ourselves well. It's like, why have we never thought about this before? It just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I was kind of suffering myself. I used to live with chronic depression and anxiety, and the more like medication and stuff that I was being given, the worse I was feeling, and it got to the point where I was kind of like suicidal, and I just thought enough's enough, and then I kind of went cold turkey, stopped taking the meds, and just started thinking about all the other things that I could do for myself naturally, and then I kind of thought, could I do this for the dogs? I wonder if the dogs would. And I started practicing with my own dogs, and just the relief and the benefits that they got from it. I was like, no, there's something definitely into this. And I went down a wee rabbit hole and just learned everything that I could learn and got all my qualifications. And yeah, I mean, but we don't necessarily think what we do for us could actually have a benefit for our dogs. So it's just my whole kind of thing is about empowering owners and educating them to be able to do this for themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to dive in then because, as I say, I'm really interested about this whole subject area. And I want to start with a bit of a confession actually, because I have got horrendous allergies, which means that as much as I love animals, especially dogs, I have never been able to like have a relationship with one because I'm just so allergic to them. Like even as a kid, it was really quite difficult. As an adult now, I stupidly every now and again try and like clap one of my pals' dogs just to see if I am actually still allergic. And yes, I am still allergic. So you're talking to somebody today who absolutely knows nothing about this. So I'm excited to see like how this unfolds for us. And before we started recording, I'd obviously been saying to you, Lisa, that one of the things I'm really curious about is that for me as a therapist, what I often see in grief work is the impact of grief on families. So it's not just one person
Yeah.
in isolation grieving, everybody within that household is grieving. So if you had a situation where somebody within the household has died and there is a dog in that household, what
Yeah.
does that show up as? Like, do dogs grieve? Is that a thing? Yeah, fill me
Yeah, absolutely. Dogs grieve just as much as we do. Dogs are one of the most intuitive, intelligent beings on the planet. And I have heard, I had a client a few months ago who came to me and her dog was grieving, and she had tried to seek help and was told that no, dogs don't grieve. And I'm like, what the heck? Yes, they most definitely do grieve. And for different dogs, it can show up as different things. For some dogs, it can show up as illness. They can start becoming unwell. They can start losing their hair, they can start getting really flaky skin, they can start to show like behaviors that they've never shown before. They can start being a bit destructive, or they can start doing the toilet in the house, or they can start whining, have really bad separation anxiety because everything's changed in their wee lives. Like things have turned upside down. It's maybe been their main caregiver that's passed. So they're kind of like, dogs understand death as well, if they see like the body and stuff, they're able to kind of understand that and process it. So yeah, I mean, definitely dogs do grieve, and it can be a multitude of things. And I think as a dog owner, you need to be aware of that as well.
That's really interesting. So is that something like from your experience you would recommend then? Like if somebody in the household has died and like the other family members are going to see or view the body, or if the body's coming home, for instance, I know that's kind of more common nowadays. Is that something you would say, like try and make the effort to let the dog have that
Yeah.
experience as well? Yeah.
Most definitely. I mean, I've kind of written it into like my kind of funeral plan, I suppose, that
Nice.
if we have a dog at the time, my husband has to let the dog see my body, because
Mhm.
so that they can understand and process that I've gone.
Mhm.
Um, and it was the same. Like we recently lost our two old boys, and we lost them just a year after each other. And we had a puppy, Zach, who's now 3. We had him. He was about a year old when we lost Zane, and he was a bit like lost, I suppose, initially, like kind of like where has my big pal gone, especially with Ziggy. He was really, really close to him. We always say that Ziggy taught him everything he knows before he left, because
Mhm.
he's so like him in so many ways. And yeah, we tried to kind of help him understand. We let him see like his collar and let him sniff it and tried to help him understand. And when we went to pick up the ashes, we took him with us. And when we went to scatter the ashes, we took him with us so that he was all part of the process as well. Dogs these days are family. They're no longer seen as just the pet, they're no longer seen as just the dog. And I think that that's amazing, because that's been me all my life anyway. People always thought I was a bit crazy because the dogs were my best friends, but now we're all kind of coming round to that. People are having dogs now instead of having children. So they are very much an integral part of the family. So I think, we have to start kind of getting them involved in these processes, and that's how they understand, and that's how they go through the grieving process just as much as we do.
Mhm. I think what's really interesting for me, as I say, as somebody that's never had a dog before, is that idea that actually a lot of what you were describing there of like some of the symptoms that you might see are actually
Yeah,
quite common to the human equivalent, if you like, because often in people, we see that one of the things that flares up is any health conditions. You talked
yeah,
about like them doing the toilet inside the house, and it's like actually for kids, regression's quite a normal thing that, a kid that maybe was quite able to go to the toilet and not like do all of that on their own suddenly might be having accidents or need a wee bit of help with it. And, it just strikes me that
yeah.
it's so similar to actually what we as humans would experience in that journey, except the difference or the difficult maybe is that dogs can't talk to us, they can't tell us what's going on for them in the
No.
same way that a human can sit down and say, I'm feeling really sad today.
Yeah, I mean that's it. It's like trying to kind of understand. I mean, obviously every owner will know their dog like inside out, so it's trying to kind of understand, what they need from you. And as you say, they can't talk to you, so it's that kind of, and that's why I'm such a big advocate of dog massage because it deepens the love and bond between you and your dog, so that intuitively you get to know them, they get to know you, and you know exactly what they need from you.
Mm.
And one of my concerns when we lost Zane was that was then Zach was the only dog in our house, and he had come into our house as a puppy with two other dogs there. He was like, happy days, I've got someone to play with. And now he was just like on his own. And we were like, and although I'm with him pretty much every second of every day, it was how is he going to cope with that? So we put certain things in place for him. Him and Zane used to sleep down the stairs together. So we then brought him upstairs and he now sleeps. Well, he now sleeps in our bed, but at the time he was sleeping in a little bed side of my side of the bed, he would sleep there and I would just let him know that it was okay, that if he wanted to come in for a cuddle, he could. I established a new routine where he comes on the school run with me, we go on the walk after school, and he comes on the school run in the afternoon so that he's not left too long on his own. I kind of upped his massage a little bit, and we made sure that we left the radio on for him when we went out, and that he's got a lot of stimulation toys as well. He's a Cocker Spaniel, he's a working Cocker Spaniel, so he's kind of on the move all the time. So I leave him some stimulation games so that if he feels the need that he's maybe on his own. But to be fair, because we put all of that in place for him, although he had the grieving process for Zen, he kind of moved through it really quite seamlessly along with the rest of us. And we took him to pick up Zane's ashes, and then when we went, we still had Ziggy. So we took the both of them together and we scattered all the ashes together. And Zach came with us, and it was just a nice wee day. And we did it at a place that meant something to all of us, and we go there quite regularly. And yeah, it's just that kind of, well, I think anyway, that he knows,
That's what I was going to ask you.
what's
Like,
going on.
was your sense that he understood the significance of that then on that day, that this was something?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, like he got an ice cream after it and stuff. There was like a
Of it.
treat and things. So, he got ice cream and the rest of us got fish and chips. So it was like a special, poignant sort of day. It was like our last kind of goodbye.
Mm.
And we still have like reminders of Ziggy and Zane in the house. And we have like their kind of memory boxes, I suppose, with like their collars and their leads and stuff, and we talk about them all the time. But we can very much see both of Ziggy and Zane and Zach. So it's kind of like they taught him things, sometimes not all good things, but they taught him things that we're like the boys were they were with me for like 15 and 16 years, so they were my anchors, and when I lost them I just didn't know how to cope. Like, unfortunately, since COVID, my family has been through a process where we've lost like lots of significant members, and the last two were my boys, and they were my anchors. So when I lost them, I was just a mess. Like, I didn't know how to cope. And we are convinced that Ziggy and Zane taught Zach everything that I needed to cope, because he just intuitively knows, like, oh,
Oh.
mum's feeling down, so I'll do this, or, I'll make her laugh. And we're like, they knew like what was coming, so they taught him. I'm a firm believer in that, yeah, they were aware of what was kind of to come.
Mm, mhm. It's interesting because I think sometimes again we can relate that in human terms as well. But I think sometimes as people are getting towards the end of their life, like they know
Yeah,
themselves that they're not as well as they were. They've got a sense that, death is near in a way. And it's just the more we're talking about it, the more I'm like, God, there's so many parallels here between like
yeah,
how we do this as
yeah,
humans and actually
totally.
the canine world.
Totally. I mean, my gran, for us, like she passed away like quite suddenly. But when I look back on the conversations that I'd had with her on the months leading up to her death, I was like, I wondered if she had a premonition, because she was talking about like she was wanting all her ducks in a row in terms of like her will and her funeral plan. And, there was everything, she was getting everything into place. And my gran kept everything like she wasn't a hoarder, but she literally like everything from when I was a baby right up until like like my kids as well. And she kept saying, "We need to get this house sorted out. We need to get this house sorted out because you'll need to clean it out when I die." And I'm like, "Oh, behave, behave." But she was totally right, and yeah, she passed away like maybe within like 6 months of us having had that conversation. So I don't know, there must have been like something in the back of her mind that I'm not going to be here for much longer. And
Mm.
I kind of felt that with Ziggy, certainly, that he would kind of look at me. Sometimes I would catch him looking at me and I'd be like, "Oh, what's that look?" Um, and I could see him like interacting with Zach, and it was as if he was showing him how to look after me. And
Wow.
then again, I saw that with Zane. Zane had cancer, but he did live a very full life because of everything that I'd kind of put in place to care for him. He did live a very full life. I mean, right up until the week before he passed, he was still running about the fields barking at birds and things like that. So he lived, a really decent life, but it was as if he was showing Zach how to have fun before he was gone type thing, and like this is what to do to wind her up, and that kind of thing. That's I felt that they knew that it was coming, so they prepared not only Zach but me for what was about to happen.
And I kind of wish as humans we did that a wee bit better as well. Though it's like I think sometimes we know things intuitively, but we try and get into that kind of like logical place of our brain and make sense of things. And it's like sometimes you just need
Yeah.
to trust that instinct that, as animals they do it beautifully because they're not going into logic and reasoning, and trying to make sense of it.
No, well, that's it. They've got no preconceived ideas. They just live for the moment. And, it's like, well, this is happening in my body. So, I mean, we always said, like, when we adopted Zane, he was nuts. It was like, Ziggy was our Mary Poppins dog. We always called him practically perfect in every way. And then we got Zane, and it was like, where did this come from? He was just off his nuts. But as much as he was completely bat crazy, he was very, very clever as
Right.
well, and clever in all the right ways. And I think, yeah, like, he kind of knew how to prepare for stuff. And I think as humans, I've always said be more dog, like take
Mm,
a leaf out of their book, live
for
for
sure.
the moment, wag your tail and smile and enjoy life. But yeah, like say your goodbyes, like get
Mhm,
ready and prepare. Always tell people that you love them because you just never know.
mhm, mhm. You started earlier on, Lisa, giving us some really useful things that if you were in that position where you recognised that your dog was perhaps grieving. So tell us a wee bit more about like what should owners do? How do you care for a grieving dog? What are some of the things that would be really useful for people to think, right, I'm going to try and do more of that or be more aware of that for them?
Yeah, so I think every dog's different, but for me, like dogs are creatures of habit, so certainly try to kind of either establish a new routine or kind of keep to their old routine as much as possible. And what I always say is nutrition is key, like your gut health is key, because if your gut health goes, then other things will start going as well. And it's the same for humans as well.
Mm.
Like if we look after our gut health, then we're going to be better. So I would make sure that you're looking at your dog's nutrition, and it's all right if they don't eat, because sometimes, like us, they will go off their food. But as long as you're giving them really good quality, tasty food to kind of tempt them in their appetite, so look at their nutrition, establish a routine, get them out and about for their mental health as well. Even if they can't walk far, like a little dog buggy is great for just getting them out and about and getting them some fresh air and letting them bark at the birds and, stop and say hello to people. I always have essential oils diffusing in my house as well, because the calming scents can really help, once they're kind of taken in by the body, they can really help the body to relax, and they just kind of take a breather, and it's like, oh, everything's okay, I'm all right. Things like lavender and frankincense and invoke a sense of safety in dogs as well. So that can envelope them and just, like help them feel really calm and safe and tranquil. And if it has been, like their favourite person or someone that they were really close to, put an item of clothing or something like a teddy, something that really smells of that person, pop it into their bed. You'll often hear when dogs leave their mums, like when puppies leave their mums, it's really good for them to have something that smells like their mum.
Mhm.
Because that's a kind of grieving process, this poor wee tiny thing's been whipped away from its mum and all its siblings, and it's come into this big scary household. So put something that smells of the person that they've lost in their bed or in their safe space. And also as well, I would say create a safe space. So Zane, for example, he wasn't the most sociable. Sometimes he'd just be like, "You lot are doing my head in," and he would just go. And when he was younger, we had a crate, and that was full of all his favourite things, and it had blankets over the top, and he could just go in and carry in and make a lovely little den for him. As he got older, he would just go up the stairs and go away from us all, and that was kind of like his chill out time. So make a safe space that your dog can go to, because sometimes, like for example, we maybe like we'll go and take ourselves off to our bed, or we'll go and sit in the garden or whatever and just take 10 to remember the person that we've lost. So we need to recognise that our dogs need to do that as well. And the other thing that I always advocate is dog massage. That can really help the body, because when we're grieving, we tend to hold like stress and anxiety and things in our bodies. Dogs do it in exactly the same way, but and I'm not talking about, like laying them on like a table and having to massage them for like half an hour or anything like that. Literally within the ad break of your favorite show, you could give your
Okay.
dog a little, like tiny 5-minute massage, but that can make the world of difference
Oh,
to
beautiful.
them. And I think just letting them know that you're there as well, you're their safe space. If they need a little cuddle, or if they need a little 5 minutes, then yeah, like let them do that. And what I always say in times of that is be led by your dog as well. So you will kind of intuitively know what they need from you. So if it looks like they're just quite happy having a wee day in the garden and milling about, then don't plan a 10-mile hike. Just
Mhm.
take your lead from them. And but equally, if they're getting up and they're having a really good day, and they want to go for that walk, then get out, because it will boost their mental health, but it'll also boost yours as well.
It really strikes me as you're speaking there, Lisa, that there's something about like I would imagine, and I don't know if this is the case, but I would imagine in lots of households, especially in those early days of grief when it's quite new, everybody's finding their feet. I would imagine there might be many instances where actually the dog gets forgotten about a wee bit. It's like they get their bowl of food put down to them, or it's the neighbour that's taking them out for a quick walk as a functional thing rather than actually the nurturing element of it. And just as you were speaking there was a kind of aspiration in me that, maybe people listening today might actually recognise the need and the importance of really bringing the dog's needs into the kind of dynamic as well,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, it can be one of those things, that dogs do. Maybe like during the time we lost like my granddad, my gran, and my uncle, like quick succession within months of each other. It was really quite quick. And as you're saying, yeah, I mean, Ziggy and Zane kind of had each other. We didn't have Zach yet. And, it was kind of like, oh God, have the dogs been walked
Yeah.
today?
Mhm.
Um, and they're maybe going, well, what's wrong with you? Why is this? And then, I'm sitting with like things of my grans and trying to explain to them as best I could that gran had moved on. And that for me was kind of like, no, I need to involve them in this process, because they need to understand why I'm behaving the way I'm behaving. So for me, that was like a kind of light bulb sort of moment that my boys need to be involved in this. But Ziggy was so intuitive, like he knew right away that mum wasn't quite right. Um, so he knew that I kind of needed him. And it was the same when obviously Ziggy passed away. I was worried how Zane would be, because he lived his whole life with Ziggy. So I was kind of like, is he going to pine? Is he going to find this really, really difficult? So I was really trying to make sure that he was okay. So yeah, I think sometimes, yeah, you maybe don't think of them initially, but then it does hit you and you go, actually, no, they need to be involved in this
Yeah.
process too.
Yeah. I was thinking even like in my family, it tends to be that houses get really busy when somebody's died, everybody's visiting,
Yeah,
folk are coming and going all the time, and it's like, gosh, add a dog into that equation. I can imagine a scenario where they get stuck in the kitchen, out the way, or they're getting shut in a bedroom because
yeah,
there's so many people coming and going. It's like, it just really strikes me how confusing that must be for a dog that if nobody's taking the
yeah,
time to explain what's going on and they know that their owners are maybe different or acting in a strange way, it's.
yeah. I mean, that's it. It can be quite overwhelming
Mm,
for dogs as well. But what we tended to do was we would pop the dogs into the conservatory with some treats and their essential oils on. And then once everyone was in and settled and had their tea and whatnot, we would then bring the dogs in and introduce them. And we were really lucky, like my family are all doggy people and they all know the dogs really well. So they were quite happy. And as I said, like they were both really intuitive. They knew that something wasn't quite right. So they just go up and give a wee nudge and get a head scratch. And that would help kind of calm everyone else down. It was like natural sort of therapy.
yeah.
That the dogs were there to kind of make everyone else better. So that was how we kind of managed that. Because Zane did get really overwhelmed if the house was quite busy and there was lots of people. As I said earlier, he wasn't the most sociable of dogs. So if there was lots of people coming and going from the house, he would just be like, oh, what's going on? Why are all these people invading my space? But if we did that really calm kind of thing where we popped them into the conservatory, we gave them something to eat and we had music on and their essential oils, then they were really chilled. So by the time they were introduced to everyone else, they were like, oh, right, okay, yeah, you guys are here and you're sad and that's okay because we're going to cheer you up, you know?
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. I've got one last question slash curiosity, and I don't know how this will feel to answer it, so if you don't want to talk about it, it's absolutely fine. But just as we're talking, and obviously you've shared the loss of your own two boys, that I kind of wondered, one of the things I find, and we've talked about it in the podcast quite often, is the sense of like the continuing bond that we have with somebody after they've
Yeah,
passed. And for me, often that turns up in the way of like, you might be in a situation and like you can hear their voice telling you what you should do and you get that bit of advice
yeah,
from them, or you're out a walk and you find yourself like talking to them in your head. It's like I think we
yeah.
recognise now that when somebody dies they don't just disappear and that's them gone. We keep them alive in our minds and our hearts. And I'm wondering like where you are in your journey now, Lisa, having lost your two dogs, like do you still have that sense of connection to them? Do you
Oh,
talk to them, like
yeah,
still
without
around
without
somebody?
a doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like we talk about them every day. Like it's as if they're still here. And as I say, their memory boxes are in a cupboard in the utility room, and I can actually see them from where I'm sitting just now. And I will just have like conversations with them. And my business was started because we had Ziggy, who was at home on his own, kind of Monday to Friday. I worked a traditional job in housing and I thought I can't leave him like that. And that was that's how I started my business. So my business is their legacy because
Wow.
it went from like dog walking and dog care into this whole beautiful like dog witch thing. And it evolved into that because of their changing needs. So they're woven into every part of our everyday life and they taught us so much as well. And they gave us so much love as well that yeah, I mean even like my son who's only 7, like he still talks about them as if they were his first friends. My daughter is 14, they were her first friends as well. And like she really misses them, she really feels it acutely. And we do as a family, we all talk about them and we look for signs when we're out. Like we'll see feathers and we'll be like, well, what one's that? Is that Ziggy or Zane? um, Air beaches where we scattered their ashes. So we go there quite often as a family, and it's as if you can maybe like feel them running around beside
Mm.
you. We've got lots of favourite walks that we went on together, and we just feel that they're there with us. I mean, folk might think that we're a bit stark raving mad, but um, they're there. We carry them with us in our hearts. We'll never forget them, because they were very much part of the family. We lost two really important members of the family, I would say. And for me, I felt as though I maybe grieved more for Ziggy and Zane than I have for humans. Just because I think I spent so much time with them, but they were with me kind of like 24/7, whereas you don't tend to spend that amount of time with a human.
No, I hear that often, and I think the other thing that for me comes into it is that that relationship you have with your dogs is completely unconditional. Like, whereas with most humans around us, there is an element of conditionality around the relationships. You know, if you behave
Yeah,
in a way they don't like, they'll no belong and telling you about it. But dogs have just got that real, unconditional nature that they'll love you
yeah.
regardless.
Yeah, totally. And that's what it is. And the relationship is totally based on love. There is never any badness. Like, humans can be really horrible to each other, but dogs just love you like unconditionally. And I think when that's kind of taken away, it's like, how do I cope without this?
Yeah.
And it took a while. Like I had to go for counselling after it. And I'm thinking people are probably going to think I'm absolutely nuts going for counselling after losing dogs, but I literally could not cope.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, like I don't think there's anything like that bond between a human and a dog. And until you've had that, I don't think you can fully understand why you need to take a day off work because your dog's died, It's,
And you know, I think that's maybe another aspiration I have from this episode. Like we were talking earlier about, like one of my hopes would be that people maybe take that moment to really think about the needs of their dogs when they're navigating grief. But I think another hope I would have for this episode is that it takes a wee bit of that stigma out of the idea of reaching out for support if you need it. Because see that thing
yeah,
you've just said there about like people think I'm crazy going for counselling or even some time off work. I have heard that so many times where people send me a message and they're like, "Hiya, I've seen that you do counselling. Like, can you work with me if my dog's died, if my cat's passed?" And I'm like,
yeah.
"Yes." Like, it's
Uh,
no
it's
different.
it's a grief like no other because it's a bond like no other. And I felt it more acutely. Like my gran was my everything. Like she was my mum, my best friend, everything all rolled into one. And I had never felt grief like that before. Because my granddad had Alzheimer's, so we kind of lost him a long time before he'd passed. So when he passed, it was more a sense of relief for him rather than us being absolutely heartbroken because we'd been prepared. But when my gran passed, oof, I'd never felt anything like this before. But then that was compounded even more by the loss of the boys. It was just like, wow, this is just yeah, and it was just such a special bond that yeah, you do need a bit of help to get over it, and that's absolutely okay.
You're preaching to the converted here. I'm like, yes, hopefully people really take that on board because it strikes me that so many people out there go without support because they
Yeah,
think it's not okay or like it's not justified or like it's not significant enough. And I'm like, I kind of wish people wouldn't do that to themselves because there are folk out there like me that can recognise just the impact of that loss. And, you know, as I say, often our relationships with
yeah,
humans are really complicated and that makes grief different. But, you know, when it's somebody, an animal that you've loved your entire life, or, you know, they've been, as you say, 15 and 16 years, it's like, God, that's a long time to have
yeah,
them as part of your world and then not have them as part of your world.
yeah, that's it, yeah. And it's, your whole life's kind of thrown into turmoil as well because you have like your routines and, I don't know how many times in the morning I still come down and go to get Zane's medication out the cupboard and I'm like, oh, he's not here anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
Just little things like that take you a while to kind of get over it.
absolutely.
Not get over it, but learn to live with it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, thank you for this conversation because like there's been so many wee light bulb moments as we've been talking where I'm like, ah, right, okay. And as I say, I think for me the parallels between dogs and humans is quite significant the more we're obviously talking about
Yeah.
this and getting into it. If people want to connect with you after today's episode, like how do they find you? Where are you online? Where should they
Yeah,
search for you?
so I am on like all the main kind of social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for my sins.
Nice.
Just search for the Dog Witch. You'll find me there. And the website is thedogwitch.co.uk. And yeah, if anyone needs any help with anything dog related, just give me a shout.
Amazing. What we'll do as well is we always try and make sure that your details will go into the show notes from today's episode. So if you're listening along and you didn't catch that, have a wee look in the show notes and we'll signpost you to Lisa's platform so you can get hold of it if you do want to get in contact. One last ask I have from today's episode is that if you've been listening and you've found the episode helpful, if it's inspired you in some way, if there's a nugget of knowledge in there that you think, actually, yeah, that would be really cool for other people to know that, please think about taking a wee moment to either share the episodes, or the other thing that's really helpful is if you leave us a review underneath the episodes, wherever you are listening to us or watching us. That helps us to get more coverage. It helps the platforms to know that we're producing hopefully useful content for you. So yeah, make sure you either leave us a review or feel free to share the episodes. If you've not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, because that means that you'll get a notification every time a new episode comes out, and yeah, it means you won't miss anything. And lastly, just a huge thank you to you, Lisa, for sharing not only your expertise, because obviously you know this stuff inside and out, it's really evident the wealth of knowledge that you've got on it, but also for sharing your own lived experience of what that journey of grief's been like. I think for me, listening to you and kind of hearing it, it makes so much sense. So I've got no doubt that for people listening to today's episode, they're going to really find it useful as well. So yeah, a huge thank you to you, Lisa, and yeah, to the listeners, hopefully you found this episode helpful, and I look forward to being back with you in future episodes.